Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rav Shmuel with you, Rabbi Stephen Epstein, Rabbi Stephen. Some people call me Rabbi Epstein, and I appreciate the formality. I kind of like to go by Rabbi Stephen. I like kind of a little bit of an informality, a familiarity. I know that sometimes you need that formality because some people unfortunately take that the wrong way. They see, they don't see the respect or something. Maybe I'm just speaking out of turn here, but I I like the formality. I like the informality. I like to have a personal relationship with people. So when people say Rabbi Epstein, I say thank you, but I can, you can. I like to go by Rabbi Stephen. I like to do it that way. Okay, so there it is. So I hope everybody's doing well. The world is still the same. I'm not going to really get into that much right now. Just know that God's watching over us. I really feel like I need to say that. Now, on another note, last week we had kind of a very interesting affair or situation at our synagogue. And I don't want to say situation, I think it was more of an event. And what we've been doing is holding a second adult Hebrew class that continues with learning the alphabet, the letters, the vowels that go with them, some of the nuances of Hebrew words. And to continue that, I have some people that were interested in pursuing that a little bit more. So we've been getting together on Sunday mornings right now, in absence of regular religious school. And we've been reading in advance the next Torah portion, the one that's going to be read on that upcoming Shabbat. And this way people are familiar. We bring them up to the bima, and this way it's more of a homegrown gabbis, officers that are able to, keep me diligent when I'm reading the Torah, or anybody else for that matter, when they're reading the Torah, because the Torah is just a bunch of letters. It really is that form the words. You don't have grammar. You don't have nikud marks, which are the formal name for description for vowels and cantillations. So all you see are paragraphs and spaces. And it takes quite a talent and some experience to be able to read. So as people have been learning, I have them come up, and one person, and this is perfectly acceptable in the conservative movement, one person will read from a chumash, and the other person will point in the Torah to that word as the other person's reading, and people have really been getting a nice kick out of it. They've enjoyed doing that. Now, one person made the comment, "Wow, that's real special," and I feel like I'm honored. And I said, "Well, you are. However, I personally believe that every Jew should be able to do this. I do. How else do we pass on our knowledge from generation to generation? It's a skill, learning Hebrew." Now, the other person that's with me up on the beam just about all the time, Harvey, he read some of last week's portion because basically it was the Musaf offerings, and they're very familiar to people who have been brought up with in a traditional Orthodox shul. You see the Musaf services for a lot of the festivals and holidays, and a lot of the words keep repeating, and you get familiar with this, like ayil for like a goat, or a hin, words that just come up all the time. In fact, the portion that we did, the triennial portion, it was almost the same reading each aliyah, because a lot, if not so much the amounts that you're using, it was the same offerings. A bowl, a couple of bowls, a goat, a sheep, or whatever, the oil, the et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes familiar, and you're able to do that. And that's really what we want to do. We want to get a generation of Jews to be able to get up and read. Okay, if I'm gone for a week, I get vacations, I'm gone for a weekend, and we need people to fill in for Shabbat services. How wonderful that people can get up, and if they have to, pair up to do this, one person reads, one person points. It's wonderful. See, it's great. Okay, enough of that. Now, speaking of a new generation of Jews, we have a new generation of Israelites in Devarim, our new book and our last book of the Torah, which we commonly call Deuteronomy. And those of you that know me know that I keep repeating this over and over again until I'm sure some of you may have been tired of it. But anybody who knows chemistry understands the periodic table of elements. And the first element is hydrogen, with nothing more than a lone proton in the nucleus and a lone electron in the first shell. Well, as we know, atoms have isotopes, and those isotopes are basically the same proton and electron, I'm sorry, but, as I slipped, it can have a different number of neutrons, which are basically a neutral charge, but they add weight to the atom. So the next isotope of hydrogen contains a proton, a neutron, and an electron. That isotope, that first isotope or version of hydrogen, is called deuterium. Deuterium from the Greek word meaning two, hence the word Deuteronomy, which is basically a second retelling. Some people have called it Mishnah Torah. Mishnah means repeat or second, from the word Shnayim to Mishnah, right? To Shana. It's the second retelling. And basically, Moses is now assembled with the new generation of Israelites that were at most under the age of 20 when their parents and their grandparents, the older generations of Israelites, were basically sentenced by God to die out in the wilderness. And it wasn't only because of the fact that they reacted negatively when the spies came back and spun, that's the right word, their view of the land in a very negative way that freaked everybody out. Well, first of all, the spies spun it they made everybody freak out. And the second thing is that everybody freaked out. And it was only Caleb and Joshua that said, wait a minute, God's been behind us the whole time. Come on, guys. Yeah, they seem pretty hardy, but we'll be able to take them, no problem. But people just wouldn't listen. And this was after a long list of complaining about the manna. Where's the meat? Where's the beef? Remember that commercial? Where's the water? We're stuck out here, or did you bring us out here to die? All the complaints. So God, just with the advent of the spies, he said, I've had it. You people are not worthy, and God was right. They were not worthy to take the land. There was no way they were going to do it with that attitude. So that's it. So now we've got a new generation that's going into the land, and we have, there's a repeat. I'm going to try and get my numbers at least estimated, but there's something like 270 commandments that Moses reviews. A couple of them are different, like the 10 Commandments. And there's about 70 new commandments. And Moses goes over this, things like setting up a judicial system, which is very important, reviewing the events of the last 39 years, but Moses does it in sort of a diplomatic way by naming only the place rather than what happened there. And what happened, and the place kind of triggers, oh yeah, that's where people complained about the manna, or that place, yeah, that's where the spies gave their, well, in the Torah, they call it a false report. It wasn't really a false report. It was just spun in a very negative way. So, and we've talked about that. But these are things that people are going to need to know, the new generation. They're going to know, again, very important, setting up a judicial system. Now, the art scroll, which is the Chumash I'm reviewing this year, goes into how, and this is the commentary, they basically say that when somebody is a judge, you're a judge, and you judge objectively. If somebody threatens you, you do not step down. Now, that's quite an interesting concept. They say that, no, you are adjudicating in the name of God, and God will see to it that you're safe, right? I mean, the laws, God's Torah is pure, it's divine. So, people that threaten a judge or try to make it so that they get some type of advantage, you still adjudicate honestly. You rise above it. Now that's quite a commitment on the judge, and that's quite a challenge to any judge to leave your personal issues aside. What does the V'ahavta say? Don't go by your eyes or your heart. Go by the commandments and only by the commandments. And this is kind of the ultimate challenge, right? If you can judge effectively without being influenced, or put the influence aside and say, no, this is Torah, this is the laws, this is the way it's got to be. That's pretty good. That's quite a character. That's a lot of integrity. And God demands no less of us Jews, right? God's saying, this is what your ancestors, through Moses, anyway, Moses is giving them God's word, is saying, this is what your parents did, and this is, first we went here, then we went there, then, and you don't do that. Okay, you people are better than that. Unfortunately, they were, but that is, unfortunately, their parents weren't up to the task. Okay, so leave you with that. Character, integrity, very important. You have to look through your personal issues, your personal feelings, and go right to the truth with a capital T. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, as usual, for listening.